Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December the 11th, and this is the Futures in 5. We're taking a look at the ES here, and interestingly, this is the trigger to go short from a couple of days ago, and I wanted to leave the days old levels so that you can see what's actually happening in the market. We've got a lot of sideways motion, and you can see the range events coming into the space. It's up over the level. This is triggering for some of our long formations, but here's the rub. What we have happening here is an aggressive bounce, a relief bounce, that certainly came from the big extension here, came right into our low target, allowed us to capture it because it extended below and then moved up, and now it's really coming into congestion zones that could easily be seen as support. Excuse me, old support, new resistance. So what are we looking at? The likelihood that we extend without pulling back remains fairly minimal. All right, so what I want you to think about is the bounce up and then the natural form of the chart, which is negative. So the short action is going to play out on the high end of this space and then the fade. So really, you want to start looking at these zones just a little bit more carefully to be aggressive on any kind of shorting that you might want. But again, you just simply have to look at the overall market. It is bearish, and what we're doing is moving through a relief bounce that's going to collapse into resistance. The same thing occurring here in the NQ, the move, fairly rapid through these pockets are just unbelievable to me. Big pockets of nothing, just sharp motion down, sharp motion up, sharp motion down. It's just very, very interesting. I haven't seen this in a while. So here's what we have. Noisy markets, bearish tones, but when we've got these relief bounces, they can really bounce much higher than you think they would. And here we are in the realm of potentially movement well up into these areas up above here. So we really have got to be fairly careful. My thought is this. First pass bounce into resistance is actually going to give us resistance. And so we have to watch for that. All right, now taking a look at the YM. This one really behaved very badly yesterday. It did not bounce like everyone else's did. It faded very steeply and then began quite a sharp move. This is the volume pocket, the low volume node. That's what it's called in the space. And so now what we have to look at is this region right here at maybe 24,820, maybe 24,870. You want to be very careful as it expands into that area. That is a rejection zone. Those of you that work with me and follow these motions, you can see where this SMI is beginning from and what that tells us overall. We know that we're going to have some reversal action in the mix. This chart bouncing off its lows, again, trying to bottom itself out and up through aggressive stages, but essentially, take a look at where this is. Ever since the beginning of the week, support to resistance, back to support. Could we go to resistance? Potentially. The problem is there's a lot of negative drift here, so we may end up getting lower highs here in this particular charting formation. We want to make sure that we get up and over the low volume node and then pull back and hold it as support. If we move up over the low volume node here, that is going to become a rejection that will likely pull back and hold as support if this chart is ready to move forward. Lastly, we take a look at gold. Gold's been fairly sideways, but breaking out and in higher congestion. That's what I've been saying for days. If I could give you one piece of advice trading right now, it is, unless you are relatively confident in knowing what it is that you're doing, I would say pick a side and let that side be on the side of trend and momentum and wait for the chart to come into where it is that you're looking at, right? For the ES, that would be something negative because we have negative drift and negative momentum, but it's also changing. we could easily form an inverted head and shoulders pattern here. For the YM, it could be a little bit of that very same thing. Shoulder pattern forming. My supposition is we don't do very well up here. We come right into the space of the low volume node, chop around and then potentially fade, or expand and then fade. There are a lot of low volume areas that really need to be fixed in these very choppy profiles. All right, so just be careful. This has been the Futures in 5.